Yeah,
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm sitting here at this synthesizer. How are you?
I'm pretty good myself, actually. Pretty good myself. So, the way this is going to work, if it's okay, is I've got
Yeah.
you plugged into a recorder, and I'll just ask you some questions, and you can answer for as long as you like, and
All right.
I'll just transcribe it later on.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, very cool.
Cool.
So, start easy here. What's your name?
Uh, well, my official government name is Colin Swegman, but my nom de plume, etc., is P.T. Burnham.
And where are you located in time and space?
Time and space allegedly is going to be what, the 11th or 12th of July 2023 here in Richmond, Virginia, on the East Coast of the United States on planet Earth.
Excellent.
Fourth dimension, apparently.
Okay. And I think you already mentioned this, but what's the name of your primary project?
That would be P.T. Burnham,
Great.
for sure.
And how long have you been performing under that name?
About 2 decades. Since 2000 and roughly 2003 was when I started. I had originally toyed around with calling myself Red or Red 13 way back in the day, and I settled on the equally unwieldy P.T. Burnham.
Is there a story behind the name?
Yes, and it's pretty simple. I was searching for a name and going through a bunch of sort of dumb generic ones, and then I I fell in love with this image of the Fiji mermaid, and I used it and the idea of myth in general. And I called my first album Myth, which you can't find through the normal channels. If you dig, you can probably find this CD Myth. But it's got the Fiji mermaid on the cover, and I was like, I gotta find a name because I'm gonna do this thing for real. And I started reading up on P.T. Burnham, sort of fascinated by the idea of sort of also related to the writer Philip K. Dick, the idea of fakes
Mm-hmm.
that are more authentic than the real thing
Mm-hmm.
because of the gravity of what they do in this reality, or their authenticity. Philip K. Dick explores this in The Man in the High Tower as well. This theme of ultra authentic fakes.
And were you supposed to be the ultra authentic fake of P.T. Barnum?
I was trying to emphasize sort of the showmanship of it, and it's really a kind of like story of just like ignorance to the greater scheme of things. I was like, being a showman is what I want to do, but I didn't really understand that actually what I wanted to do is be like Stevie Nicks instead, like
Mm-hmm.
more than like P.T. Burnham. But it just kind of like rolled, like I don't know. I feel like sometimes like a graffiti artist. It's like you take a name and you make it what you can. That's the symbol now, and it's got its own attachments and its own lore and weird, thing going on.
Very much so. What is your most recent audio release?
The most recent audio release is actually a 30-minute tape that I released last week through Patreon. And it's a limited edition cassette, and it's also a digital release for those folks. and it contains like a bunch of, it's kind of like an audio diary, more intimate and meant to be more kind of whatever I want it to be, rather than like something like Perzang, which is my most recent like cold rhymes release that had publicity behind it, etc.
Yeah.
Which is more like a what you would expect of an album, like, as a collection of songs, whereas the tape stuff is a little, I won't even say weirder, just a little more intimate.
I see. And I think you already mentioned that it was tape. What formats is it on?
Only tape and digital. And I definitely am preferring tape because tape combines the two things that I like about the two formats that are cool to me, which is like, it's like not the ideal format necessarily, but it combines the intimacy of a record and the physicality and intentionality of a record with the ability to homebrew like a CD.
Okay.
You know, like,
absolutely. That makes a great deal of sense to me.
Yeah.
And what instruments do you play or sing or speak on it?
Right now I'm using an array of synthesizers like the Pulsar 23 by Soma Laboratories. I play a collection of desktop synthesizers made by Make Noise, which includes sequencer and effect unit and main like oscillator sound generation source, but they're all sort of interchangeable. I also have recently moved back to using an MPC again and sampling a lot more. So those are all core aspects of my setup. I also play tape machines and pedals during the thing, and I think that's about it. That's one of the keys actually of these tapes, is that I wanted to keep, like, even if I remake an older song, or I'm liking right now to do covers of friends' songs, and but keeping the palette restricted to like a core set of instruments. Oh, which I would be doing a great disservice if I didn't mention Mononoke, which is a delightful iPad synth and a serious core of what I do right now. It's actually modeled on the synthesizer by Soma called the Lyra 8, which is a really nice 8 oscillator synthesizer. It's set up uniquely where you tune each oscillator, and each oscillator is like a key, but it's playing its own source oscillator. It would be like if you just had 8 piano keys or like violin strings that all could only play one note. You can activate them, and sort of the important thing is that they interact with each other in surprising ways through an internal series of feedback loops. So they create a lot of weird swells and atmospherics. It's a master of atmospherics, and it uses, unlike the Lyra 8, which is a hardware beast and uses these metal poles to activate the notes, which is very cool. The iPad synth has a very lovely glide function that you can touch the note and glide. You can really get some super guitar-like tones on it just from that. I'm a big fan of physical interface, intuitive physical interface.
Yeah.
And Mononoke definitely has a very intuitive physical interface.
Okay. Well, I totally follow that, because though people can learn music theory, and that's wonderful, a lot of the times learning to be intimate with your instrument is learning the physicality of how it feels.
Absolutely.
So, now, how old were you when you started writing your own music?
I guess this would probably be around 2002, so 30 years old. Or no, 20 years old, sorry. 20 years old.
Okay, I was like, for a second, I was
like, yeah. That math didn't make any sense. I'm pretty bad with like dates and things like that. But.
Okay. Sure. What made you want to be an artist?
Hmm. It's interesting. This is super cliche and make of it what you will, but I think at first it was girls. Like, I think I wanted to think it was something else, but I do think at first it was like a, to have something interesting to say and do. And I mean, I'd always played music, but it quickly became its own thing. Like,
Mm.
like, I don't know. And actually, it's funny because it's girls, but in a way that's like, not maybe not the typical way where like I learned how to rap and started producing with this girl, Ruth Blum, who went by Infinity at the time. She doesn't make music and hasn't for a long time, but we lived together and I kind of like, she kind of taught me how to freestyle. And I went from wanting to DJ to wanting to make beats because that time with her was so fun.
Okay, and when you first started that process of programming and composing, what were you using equipment-wise then?
An MPC 2000. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's a very nice time.
Where did you grow up?
In the suburbs of Washington, D.C., a little town called Burtonsville.
Were your parents musically inclined?
My mother played piano, and my dad is always singing, much to the annoyance of my mother. His voice is not exactly like professional at all. He just loves to sing. And my mom plays some piano. She'd fallen out of practice, but I'm really pleased to say that she's been practicing more and even picking up a little bit of guitar. So they're inclined, but they never really, I think they grew up in a different time. It wasn't as much of an option.
Mm. And when you started listening to music that your parents didn't show you, what was it that you started listening to?
Okay. That my parents didn't show me. Boy, this is gonna probably play like some of the most cringeworthy stuff, maybe. But so I'm trying to think if it actually started here because my mind goes there, but maybe there's some stuff before that. So I'm following that, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, it's definitely gonna be the core source of this stuff is going to be my high school friends, and it's going to be like Metallica and the Insane Clown Posse, the Offspring. Okay, no, it starts with like the Offspring and Green Day.
Yeah.
Typical '90s fare. Like my friend had like Smash on CD, and it was just like jaw dropping in its. I mean, for little me who had never heard anything outside of like the softer sort of, the Doors get a little wild and Steppenwolf gets kind of wild, but like nothing like, nothing that's just like punk. Like if I'd have known about the Ramones or like or like even Iggy Pop and the Stooges or something, right? Like that shit makes like Smash by the Offspring look pretty like tame kind of in its raw, weird, animalistic expression. But at the time, I had not heard anything like that stuff.
Absolutely. It's interesting you should mention Offspring and Green Day because I specifically remember Basket Case being on the radio when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, and that being like something about that song really struck me.
Yes.
That era
Definitely.
of alternative and pop punk.
Yeah, I think it was like the first time really that, I mean, I guess there's probably prototypes before this. No, actually I'm wrong. It's just that it's like more of the voice of our shit, where like the specific mental proclivities and like abnormalities of this generation were being expressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the idea of just being bored as fuck with everything and and everything kind of being insane, and it's like we're perfectly safe, and it seems like the dream life that our parents wanted for them, but it looks more and more like an insane robotic prison.
Right.
and it's making me neurotic. And they're actually singing about that shit to like the kind of chord structures that make every animal, like all human animals, be like, what? Cool.
Very much so. So, you've toured pretty extensively, from what I understand. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. It's a
Like,
big part of my late 20s and 30s.
where have you been?
Shit, all over the U.S., not Hawaii or Alaska. Probably not even the entire continental United States, but I don't think I played Utah. But I've played, California, Maine. I've stuck a lot to the East Coast of the United States. That's where my main stomping ground is. But I've made my way over to California and done some work there. And in the 2011 or 12. Yeah, 2011. Actually, 2010 and 2011, I went over into Europe, which was very fun. Did a lot of actually East. I'm happy that we got our Eastern European tours in. Like we've been to Russia and Ukraine, places like this where there's a lot of probably harder to do anything. Yeah, with all this strife going on.
Oh, for sure.
Met a lot of beautiful people over there. But yeah, I've been a lot of places.
Do you find that the audiences respond differently in different countries?
Totally.
But
yeah, but I think it's based. I don't really necessarily think it's based on. Yeah, it's just based on character of the scene, honestly. Or at least that's what I've found. Like we played these shows in Romania that it was like, this is what it must have felt to play punk at CBGB's or something like that, where it was just everyone came out. The whole scene was and everyone was uninhibitedly just throwing down.
Yeah.
And it just was something that it happens in America, I think, still. I know that I've seen it, but I think it's rare to see. And I got my own theories on it, but it just seems it seemed like there was no internet, there was no Facebook event for the thing, but everybody was there. It's word of mouth was so strong in these communities, and it felt like what it must have felt like probably playing punk in the early 80s. And it just felt really, really cool for those couple of days. It was a little bit like a dream. But
well, you say you've got your theories. What makes you? Why do you think America doesn't do that?
Because I think that the extension of personal choice and what that means for the organism, have you ever read, this is funny, but have you ever read Aziz Ansari's book, Modern Romance?
I have not.
It lays out a pretty strong case for the reason that it's we have more ability to find our ultimate soulmate than ever. More ways to connect to more people, find common interests, common goals, etc. And yet so much divorce, so much nobody even really wants to partner up. Everything's turning to alternative ways, which is tight. I'm not criticizing it, but I'm saying that the reason for it, from the point of view of someone from 40, 50 years ago, it isn't tight. And the cause of it is that all this choice, although it would seem to empower us, what it does is makes us constantly hopeful that there might be something better. Instead of investing time in what is there. It's
well, it makes us think of our romantic choices as though they're consumer choices, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of choice and a sense of, okay, I'm out at the show and it's no longer just what is going to happen. It's a full awareness that you are potentially being watched if you would like to be, that you might have a vested interest in being my place is the best place. This is the place to be. You're thinking and seeing on your little screen the other places that you might be able to be, or other things that are recurring. And I think that this results in sort of feeling on the ground of wanting to see what's next rather than what's here. Like, it seems like there's some kind of feeling of wanting to be somewhere else constantly, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, because of the communication technology proliferation, you're always competing with different, let's say, mind spaces. So like you could be in a mind space. I think and maybe before the proliferation of the communication and everyone's access to it, at least here, it used to be that people in a similar physical location were more or less in a similar mind space if they were choosing to be there, Whereas now everyone has a direct connection to a facilitated or, let's say, simulated other mindsets in the moment, and that makes them directly compete with the reality that's in front of them.
I would absolutely say that would be a great avenue to think about it on, because I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about organization, and like the way that a thing becomes magnetic. A piece of non-magnetic metal can become magnetic by placing a magnet near it, because it starts to line up its atoms.
True.
In the positive negative fashion that then ends up magnetizing it. So if we can think about that with magnetism, then perhaps we know that the brain is giving off waves. We know, like, I'm not saying like, ooh, spooky science. Like,
no. I'm following.
It's just, it's just more science. But I think that having everyone, like you say, like engaged in the same space, fully, like without too much distraction, because it is about intent. And not just the intent of the performer, the person there, but the intent of all those present.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Now, just exploring the idea, I am interested also in the idea that it's that there's a ongoing evolution of this other sort of space that's we're kind of just now dipping into with all these technologies. Yeah. That might actually concretize or become, I don't know how to put it exactly, but like basically we'll all gather in this other mental space.
Yes.
And then that will have its own set of connections as well. But we're kind of in at an evolutionary bottleneck, sort of, because we're still stuck in the meat spaces. And we haven't yet developed whatever this other space is going to be. So maybe that... I don't know, I'm just...
Well, talking. No, definitely. Definitely. I think the idea of midway points and places like that, that's very fascinating to me for sure. I often... I usually define writer's block as, well, one of the varieties is this thing where you're done saying what you were able to say in the vocabulary that you used to use, and you do not have the vocabulary yet to say the things you want to say now.
Yeah.
Like, you're building it, musical vocabulary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I definitely can see that. The implications of that are absolutely wild, and like of this new space that is opening up.
Yeah, this abstracted space that, because I mean, definitely there's the physical space as well, but like because we're kind of at this place where everyone at the show is kind of half somewhere else, but there isn't really that somewhere else completely manifest yet. Like, whatever it's going to be. I don't know.
Oh, my question is though, when it does manifest, when it does more fully manifest, will it still be so chaotic in terms of its like flood? It's like right now what we're doing is like, I think, going to be looked at later, if there is a later, as like something totally wild, where we were constantly flooding ourselves with mostly random dopamine kicks, peppered with targeted advertisement dopamine kicks, like dopamine traps.
Right. That's a great challenge of the communication technology right now, is like the fact that most of it technologically is being facilitated either by these tech companies who have a vested interest in advertising to us on the most base and even like subliminal level, or like the Chinese government. And those are the two competing models right now, and neither of those models feels like it's the best use of that space or best way to...
No, it's insane. It's insane use of the space. But I think that what's happening is related to this idea. Okay, so I forget where I read it, but it was this thought about how when you talk to most people and you're like, well, wouldn't it be great? Like what if everyone could just do whatever they wanted?
Sure.
You know? And a lot of people recoil in terror. They're like, well, but then they would just kill and like, you know, steal and all this crazy shit. And what the problem with their brains is, or the challenge that their minds have not yet managed to get past, is they can think of what people would do if they could do anything they wanted, but they cannot imagine what people will be like when they can do anything that they wanted.
It's true.
Because if you have infinite capabilities and infinite possibilities, then all of a sudden murder, rape, all this
Yeah.
stuff that infringes on another consciousness doesn't seem like exactly the look. It's not necessary.
That creates so many interesting problems. And also like, because I can even imagine, like, again, this is very Philip K. Dick, but you know, voluntary chambers where you undergo simulations that are like super incredibly advanced video games, kind of. And like, and in the context of that simulated universe, technically you could do all those things and not be violating anyone's consent.
Yes.
All right. You know what? I'm just gonna like get back to the music now, if that's okay. Just drifting dangerously into like
definitely it is. But we should just, I mean, next time I'm in Greenville, we should just link up and shoot the shit over.
Yeah, we should just talk about
take notes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it almost seems silly now to talk about this, but how do you approach lyric writing? Do you find yourself writing about specific like stories, or do you prefer something more impressionistic?
I'm very impressionistic, I would say. I try to go through two stories, and I think that it's, I don't know. I find my writing process weird when I compare it to other folks, and I wish I had more stories, or I wish I was better at the impressionist thing. Not that I'm putting those, like, I kind of waver somewhere in between, and I think it has something to do with this thought that I had last year, which is that I've never been big on geographical location. Like a lot of rappers rap about their city. Yeah. They'll even rap about specific locations and stuff like this. Like Albee Square Mall, you know, like, and even my man Hike Peach, he made a whole album called Baltimore Highlands. Yeah. And I feel like my mind has always felt that despite where I am in space and time, the landscape I inhabit is always my mind.
I feel you on that.
Like,
I've never been a place person either.
Yeah.
In that same way.
Yeah, it feels less important than how I see, or
Mhm.
like how, or what I'm going through, what the mind. I've always been fascinated with what the mind is going through. You know, I almost made it to a psych degree in college because I was fascinated, but then statistical psychiatry just like left me fucking cold as fuck. So like, I'm fascinated with what it does to a person. Trauma's interesting, but you know, also like empowerment is also very interesting. Just like the patterns that we go through and
Mhm.
what we're seeing. There's this phrase that the Buddhists have that says basically like when a pickpocket meets the guru, it meets its pockets. It's like that which you're concerned with
Yeah.
will manifest. But anyway, so in terms of songwriting, I would say I lean towards the sort of esoteric-ish, just like this is the single where I'm going through some stuff, or at least my later material. Earlier, it's also more rappy stuff, and I'm actually just getting back into lyric writing after spending like a year and a half mostly just focusing on synthesizers and figuring out sounds. And it is a blast. I think I gave it a good rest, and now I'm back at it, and it feels like I'm more easily able to decide what's right at any given time, like out of the myriad things that could be chosen.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that because, like, when I saw you perform at Alley Cat, I definitely think I keyed in on some occult and spiritual related lyrics based on what my
Absolutely.
understanding is. How has that?
Absolutely.
How has occultism and spirituality affected your work?
Enormously. But I'm a big fan of I'm a fan of occultism and spirituality, adhering to what the original form of like sort of religious spirituality said, where it's like it's a personal thing.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the shit that I've got, the toolkit that I have, the tarot is. I'm very familiar with the tarot and how it corresponds with the Hebrew alphabet and numerology. I'm starting to learn more about how that all corresponds to astrology. And I thought astrology was corny for a long time. But here's my theory on this, because I know a lot of people think the tarot is corny, and it's this. This is the thing. Anything that exists, you're going to get people that get into it on a depthful level, and you're going to get people that get into it on a surface level.
Right.
When it comes to almost everything, but especially the esoteric and the occult, the under level is very difficult to talk about and spread.
Right.
Like, like, and the surface level is very easy. These are very pretty pictures, these tarot cards, you know, like, so you get like, 10% or 20% people that are depthfully studying this stuff and really dipping in and getting the real,
Right.
revelations of what the signature of the sun versus the signature of the moon means. Like, and then you've got like 80% like, I don't know, just kind of people that are a little bit corny, getting into it on a somewhat surface level. And then you encounter those people, and it's like, oh, it's kind of corny and like kind of woo woo, or it's like airheaded or something,
Hmm.
kind of like. And there's always this feeling, I think, amongst laymen where it's like, because it's like anything goes, right? I mean, if I want it to mean this, then it means this. If I want it to mean that,
Hmm.
it means that. And it's like no, for various reasons, these symbols are imbued with power. It does have to do with my mind.
Yes.
But everything has to do with my mind.
And it has a lot to do, in my interpretation of it, with patterns of rhythm related to sort of ebbs and flows of types of consciousness. Like almost like it's a clock telling you something about how
Huh.
how ideas expand and contract again over time. That's kind of how,
Yes.
yeah. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and yeah, I don't want to get, but I think the corny stuff is a lot of times I think it's just that people like the aesthetic of things as well. Like so, they'll get into the
They like the
aesthetic of
aesthetic.
it, and that's perfectly fine.
It's fine. Oh, I'm definitely not judging. When
No,
I
I
say
understand.
corny, everybody's got to get involved on the level that they can get involved.
Sure.
Um, like I was involved on a surface level for probably 5 years before something clicked, and I was like, oh shit, like, but yeah, it factors in heavily.
Yes.
And I think that, like, I don't know, although I am spiritual,
Yes.
and very, very, like, much so, I spend a lot of time thinking about these things. I'm also very much pragmatic,
Yes.
for the most part.
Yes.
I like meditation because it brings me calm.
Right.
I don't, I see what happens to my mind as I get more compassionate. I see what happens, as I get more understanding of the fact that all of my ire and all of my negative emotion comes from inside,
right.
not outside. Like, so this is like, I mean, to various degrees, I see it as nothing less than claiming the mantle of, like, the Godhead, basically. Like,
yeah,
it's just
of course.
like,
that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about to me.
But it's super difficult. Like, this,
right.
You will be destroyed, basically. Like,
sure,
you don't get to really claim the Godhead, not the you that is now. Like the you that will claim it is going to be one with it. It's like being part of a flame. That which you were is now dissolved.
Well, you're transforming, and you're being, and
we're transforming now.
Of course. Well, just this conversation has been pretty enlightening. But like, specifically, I almost lost the thread here. Specifically, what I was talking about in terms of like the occult is I just recognized that there was, like you said, there's a part of you that's like being connected to the Godhead or becoming the Godhead, or maybe the Godhead becoming you, and there is the idea of being destroyed by it. Because it's also like, the inverse way you could think of it as being a product of self-creation, that you're being expanded as well. Like, it's
absolutely, but you're only expanded to the degree that you can understand how you don't have limits or definition.
Correct. Exactly. Right. So it kind of like meets itself in a way.
Yeah. Well, and this has to do with what I was saying about the like what people will be like when they can do anything. It's like the me that will be able to do or possess the kinds of powers or the kinds of awarenesses that might be gained through the occult. The process of gaining those will shift and change me.
Absolutely.
To where those are no longer my concerns. I believe it's the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles shows in the Waite Smith deck, the Two of Pentacles shows a male figure juggling two pentacles, and between them, you can see they make the infinity sign. And one of these things that's being said here is that you have all the power of the universe in your hands, and yet here you are using it to manipulate minor money.
Yes.
Like yeah, you're working impressive magic tricks, but it's like using a supercomputer to work out the grocery list. It's like.
And on a pragmatic level, because you had brought up being pragmatic as well, because I definitely feel that in my own life. On a pragmatic level, the sort of irony of it is that your most selfish or egotistical self, which is just being annihilated over time,
yes,
you actually discover that what is in fact going to benefit you the most, even materially, is going to be an increasing letting go of that self that is demanding all that. So it's like that's the irony. That's the paradox of it. Is like,
yes,
the thing, like you said, like as you expand yourself in your compassion and your meditation, it turns out delaying anger and calming yourself actually can turn enemies into friends and can bring more people to your side, and like, so there's like a practical manifestation of it working as well as the more esoteric.
Absolutely. And it also, just naturally, makes whatever you're involved in more tolerable.
Yes.
Like, it's like I remember, and this is like, I mean, I'm not weighing in on anyone else's right or however they want to feel about guns.
Okay.
I know that I bought a shotgun maybe 4 years ago now, and then I sold it after about 2 years of owning and learning how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I sold it was because I had this sudden realization that we are in some sort of conflict here, but my role in the conflict is not to like kill the enemy when the enemy comes.
Right.
My role is that if the enemy, inescapably comes and dashes us all into some sort of prison,
right,
for me to make that prison as tolerable and full of compassion for the other prisoners.
Yeah.
And in fact, that may be what I'm already doing. If you believe, I forget how to pronounce his name, but like Ostrensky's,
yes,
Opensky's prison of the mind. If you believe that we're already trapped in the prison of the mind, then that then becomes your mission now, here in this prison.
Exactly. I also too used to. I had a rifle and a pistol, and I got rid of them. And eventually, like, I realized that winning the war is more about taking the blows than it is about giving them. And like,
yes,
and like, if you can absorb fully the antagonism of another, then it dissipates. But if you push back against it, it's like two waveforms meeting in sound theory. If you have two waveforms meet each other at the exact same frequency, it doubles the waveform. So it's like,
right.
So it turns out that there's a selfish, if you want to think about it that way, an egotistical reason to be compassionate and to be
absolutely
tolerant. Yeah,
absolutely. It's absolutely like I don't get this drive. Like I don't understand this drive that everything has to be non-selfish.
right.
Compassion is not non-selfish because you're realizing that everything is the self.
Yes.
Nothing is the self.
Right.
Like you're realizing, yeah.
And to truly win is to work with something and be joined to it. But
yes.
We're again, right. We've gone really far off the rails.
Yes.
In a fun way, but
yes. Okay, so yes, it does influence my writing, and more all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we've answered most of the questions I had related to your specific musical project, but what about you personally? Like, do you have any collections? Do you have anything you like to collect?
It's funny you should ask that because I have a smart alecky answer that I just thought of this morning. And I got to preface it by saying I actually have nothing against collectors or collections, and in fact, love the fact and the idea of my own record being in collections.
Right.
However, from my own standpoint as a being and as a pragmatist, I feel like if something's more valuable inside the packaging than outside the packaging, then it shouldn't exist. Like, although not all collectors keep that stuff like that. If it's a well-worn collection, a collection of books whose spines are all broken, excellent. Or even if they're just well-worn. Like, I like collections if they're well-worn. I don't really have any collections myself.
I feel
other than Sound's ex-girlfriends.
What do you hope the audience gets out of your performances?
Whew. Damn. God damn. It's not a tough question, but it's such a, there's many different things that I could hope that somebody might take away. But the main thing that I think that I've gotten from music that I hope to share with mine is a feeling of solidarity in understanding the insanity of this universe and the tragic suffering that we're going through as human beings. The dealing with the darkness that can rend the mind, that can bring us to places so low that we contemplate termination or that we like, things that get in the way big time of our seeing the light in ourselves and share and spreading that amongst the people that we know. I'd like to say, like, we are all in the maze, and I'm here too. And, you're not alone in being totally baffled and insane, making by this thing that we're going through in the 21st century here. That was kind of the mission, like, because I felt like a lot of the things have been said, like folk artists, especially like really, underground Appalachian folk, folk music of all sorts has already said the things that need to be said about the human experience as a human to human experience. I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's always evolving, but I find it more pertinent to write about like the human to human and human to marketer, human to tech, human to all these minds that we have to interact with and how that affects us. Because that seems to be what's happening now, and maybe hasn't been written about. Although the more that I read and the more that I understand, it's like, oh, they've said even all this stuff. The Saturday morning cartoons have said it all, actually. Like, my partner just introduced me to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is weird to watch this for the first time at 40, but it's so amazing the way that, they even include, in the way that they portray the characters' genders.
Yeah.
They follow the original Hebrew script of Jehovah.
Okay.
It's great. Like, because the original script goes Yah, He, Vev, He. And Yah is like God, Jah, Yah. And then He is the mother. And then Vev is the son. And then He, the second He, is the daughter. And the characters, and they also correspond to, what is it? Earth. Earth is the last He. Water is the middle He. I want to say air. Air is the Vev, and fire is the the Je.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of the secrets are all over the place. Like, there's no I don't know. It feels like the more that I'm like, oh, I want to say something original, the more that I see that it's all been said, and the more that I kind of like look, actually, if I can't get the information across like that, in this way of a new thing being said, a new consideration, then I would like to give to people what I feel when I listen to my friend Hype Keach's records, which is a feeling of like, oh, okay, I know I'm running on long, but let me put it to you like this. I love Aesop Rock.
Yes.
I love how wordy Aesop Rock is and all the new ideas that I can get and glean. But I recently was on a Mac Miller kick last year. And like, there's a lot of Mac Miller stuff that I cannot listen to. All these like sex rhymes, I'm just like, nah, I cannot see it. But on Swimming. On Swimming, he's got this one line, he's like, and you ain't never got to worry. I ain't never in a hurry, even if it's 7:30 and the time is running low. It's like the idea that it doesn't matter what's happening, I'll always have time for you. Like I'll be there for and with you no matter what. It's like, what does a human want to hear other than that? Like, there's like all these myriad ideas and holograms, and when you just like revert it back to the animal, right? Revert back to like the human heart as it relates even to the animal. Like, what we want to hear is like, don't worry, baby, I'm gonna be there.
That is excellent. following that is difficult, but is there anything that you would like to promote?
Yes, two things. One is definitely my Patreon, which is where I'm doing all my experimenting right now. Like, if you're interested in getting closer to what I do and simultaneously giving me the time to do it, then the Patreon is the thing to do. It's really inexpensive, and even the more like kind of expensive tiers, like nobody's giving tapes away for $6 a month, or at least no campaigns that I look at. So it's got a good value to it, and it's the best way to support what I do. Other than that, I have a record that I produced for a guitarist, singer-songwriter who you actually know, Aaron Brookshire.
Yeah.
And he's putting out a record called Nothing Beats a Try on Cold Rhymes Records. This Friday is when we're starting the pre-order, and it's he started out with a bunch of really well-written songs, and I came in and sort of sampled the shit out of his guitar and brought along all these digidelics and big drum machines, and even the kinds of objects that you saw at the show that I did at Alley Cat.
Oh, yeah.
I had a smaller version of that plays a part in some of the production there, too. So I'm really excited. It's a really heartfelt and beautiful record, and that's the next thing that's really on my radar. Those two things. And of course, Cold Rhymes Records. Cold Rhymes Records is the banner.
Excellent. Well, here's the final question.
Yeah.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you were hoping to talk about?
We ran the gambit. That was a lot. That was a lot of fun, and one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done.
Hell yeah.
I think we pretty much covered it, and just would love to talk more with you over some coffee or tea or whatever you'd like.
That is a plan for sure.
Hell yes. So yeah, it was lovely talking to you, Ryan. I think that's pretty much we covered it.
All right, awesome. So if you would provide me like 4 to 6 like pictures that I could include
sure.
in the interview, whatever you think would be best, preferably you performing if possible.
Cool.
And
yeah, I'll focus on that.
And it'll be digitally released on August 1st, and I'll get you a link to that. And I'll also mail you a physical copy next month if you'd like to.
Hell yeah! Definitely, very into that.
That was a tremendous amount of fun. I genuinely really enjoyed where your mind goes.
You as well. You as well, Ryan. Yeah, that was wonderful. I'll let you know the next time I'm coming into town. If you ever find yourself up around this way, give me a holler.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Cool.
Have a good night, man.
You too.
Bye.
Peace.